This is the Central Coffee Processing Unit of the defunct Coffee Marketing Board at Bogolowi, the single most significant relic that evokes memories of the times of government monopoly of the coffee sector. It was here that all the coffee collected across the country was processed, stored and packaged for export. Set up in the 1970s, Coffee Marketing Board was the single seller of Uganda's coffee until 1990 when government opened up and liberalized the sector. Ernest Kakwano was the last managing director of Coffee Marketing Board. He later became the pioneer managing director of the new regulatory body, Uganda Coffee Development Authority.
All the export used to come to Coffee Marketing Board through the central bank. And the farmer was taking about 30% of the proceeds.
Hannington Karuhanga was a member of the top management of Coffee Marketing Board who witnessed its dissolution. To him, the move by government to liberalize was timely.
It was necessary, I believe, at that time to make sure that we rein in government expenditure. So it was both an economic-driven program, but at the same time also a program within the agribusiness to open up and get other participants.
Frederick Kauma was one of the members of the team on the Agriculture Sector Adjustment Project that formulated modalities of rationalizing coffee marketing in Uganda and the subsequent restructuring of Coffee Marketing Board.
The idea was to bring back the involvement of the private sector in processing and in export of coffee. Yeah, that was the whole thing, to create more efficiency in the system and to ensure that the farmers get the best return.
In 1991, the National Resistance Council, the parliament of the time, passed the UCDA bill, and in the same year, the president assented to the statute, giving UCDA the mandate to oversee the coffee sector.
And therefore government allowed in other players to come in and process coffee and sell. So Coffee Marketing Board was trained as a trading arm to compete with other private people. Now UCDA was created as a policy body, as an authority to regulate their functions.
The new body was now in place with the key mandate of promoting and overseeing the development of the entire coffee industry through supporting research, promoting production, controlling the quality and improving the marketing of coffee in order to optimize foreign exchange earnings for the country and increase farmers' earnings.
UCDA wrote a policy advising government and said, look, there's no way we can hope to increase the coffee production unless the farmer gets a bigger proportion of the coffee. And indeed, Coffee Marketing Board was taking about 35%, certain processors were taking about 15%, and so on. And the farmer was getting much less.
The central bank offered temporary office space to UCDA to kickstart its operations.
We had very good support from government. We had very good support from World Bank. They gave us all the budget that we needed for institutional startup, including the money, vehicles, computers, everything that you need to start a new organization.
UCDA subsequently transferred to Amber House, and a year later, in 1992, it acquired this building at Ginger Road, which was named Coffee House. It consequently became the home housing the headquarters of UCDA.
I think it used to be owned by East Mengo growers who were indebted to Coffee Marketing Board, and we had a trade-off the house for the debt.
Uganda ranks the second largest coffee producer in Africa and 10th globally. It is also the largest exporter on the continent. But most significant, Uganda is known as the birthplace of Robusta coffee with enormous genetic resource pool and many different varieties.
And you have developed standards. The standards which are descriptive of all the Robusta coffees in the whole world. So Uganda is the reference point of the Robusta standards, and thanks to UCDA, which has maintained the focus on making sure that Uganda is seen as the best country that can have the best coffees in the world.
Although the implementation of the UCDA mandate started off on a good footing, the regulatory body's ability to revive the sector was put to test with the outbreak of the coffee wilt disease in 1993, barely 2 years after its formation. By the end of 2000, all Robusta zones across the country had been affected, reducing production level down to 42%.
Areas that were growing coffee most, it started attacking areas in Fort Portal area, especially Kasese area, and of course in Mubende, Mityana, then moved on to Masaka area. It was kind of mysterious. We had never known this. So the board had to really, find out what kind of the nature of the disease that had come in, and also to devise ways and means of advising growers how to fight it. And I can tell you that was not easy.
It was not until 2000, after intensification of mitigation measures by UCDA, that coffee production started picking up again.
And Uganda decided that we must go on an aggressive campaign, first of all, educating farmers on the coffee wilt and getting coffee farmers to uproot the affected trees, to burn and then to get new seedlings and plant coffee elsewhere. That campaign was successful. There were a lot of measures put in place, and UCDA was implementing that, and then working with the research people, screening clones that could be then put to the farmers in terms of disease-free coffee clones. So that's where this thing of clonal coffee came from.
UCDA's dedicated efforts paid off. By 2005, Uganda's coffee had relatively recovered and reclaimed its position as the most important agricultural commercial commodity and major foreign exchange earner.
The approach was, let's participate in trade exhibitions, let's have trade fairs, trade missions, both in and out of Uganda, and let's get to know who our consumers of Ugandan coffee are, and let them also get to know who the producers of Ugandan coffee are, and there we go to fully appreciate the standards which the consuming countries wanted, and they also fully appreciated the conditions and the inherent quality characteristics that the Ugandan coffee has. And I think with that understanding, it paved the way for good trade relationships.
UCDA has both the regulatory function but also the development function. So we regulate all aspects of quality, right from the seed through the nurseries, post-harvest handling, but also the final product that is exported to the market. And on the development side, we facilitate the industry to make sure that we have higher volumes that is either produced for sale outside or consumed in the country.
Currently, the sector is contributing an annual average of 20% of Uganda's total export, and UCDA's role as a regulator has been very instrumental. One of UCDA's major activities is supply of planting seed from registered and certified seed producers to the nursery operators to produce elite seedlings that are later distributed to several farmers across the country at no cost. They also provide extension support as well as demonstrating good agricultural practices to farmers in Uganda. James Musule, a farmer in Luguzi village, Namayumba Mityana district, is one of the beneficiaries of UCDA's services. He has been in coffee business for 6 years now. After realizing the dire need for quality seedling in his area, Musule approached UCDA, who gave him 20 kilograms of coffee seeds, which he planted and got 10,000 seedlings.
Twagala okuyamba abantu b'omu kitundu mu Gombola ne districts ezinaanyeewo mu byensigo n'okubasembereza ensigo okumpi. Ekyo kimu. Ekyokubiri, okusimbira mu budde. Ensonga yakumeka yakubiri. Ensonga eyokusatu ntwaga okuyigiriza abantu ab'ebika byonna, abakyala, abavubuka, abaami abakulu nti okusimba emmwanyi business.
He relied on UCDA for technical advice, which he consistently applied.
Ensigo n'amagezi getwaliyisa ag'ekikugu nti mukuliwa nasale bedi ddagala kiti oyinza okukozesa senga oba olabye akumanyi akezinze ate n'okuwuliziganya nga tulina empuliziganya nabo.
Working with his wife and children, Musule has raised money from selling seedlings that enable him pay university tuition for his 2 children, but most importantly, buying 9 acres of land to fulfill his dream.
Kubanga lulimba demokaploti kano nkenja kusimbira ddala omusiri gw'emmwanyi bayita gaggadde. Nakulira mu kyalo bulungi eno wendi wano. Taata yatugambanga nti emmwanyi ye banka y'omunaku.
With the intensified seedling process, farmers have also realized that there should be more organized and more farmer groups, associations, cooperatives have been formed. Joseph Nkandu is the founder and executive director of NUCAFI, the National Union of Coffee Agribusinesses and Farmer Enterprises, a farmer-based institutional setup that was formed in 2003 by coffee farmers who realized the need to reorganize themselves following the collapse of the Uganda Coffee Farmers Association.
Farmers were not caring. Everyone, because every trader was free to trade in any form of coffee, whether good or bad. He said, guys, if we are to make money from coffee, we must look after our coffee. And it is the farmer, first and foremost, to take a responsibility for your own actions. 2, the farmer must add value to your coffee, or else it is going to become a vicious cycle of poverty.
To achieve their objectives, the union developed a guiding model they called the Farmer Ownership Model.
As we talk now, we have been able to establish a very vibrant national organization of coffee farmers, NUCAFI, having 198 associations and cooperatives as we speak now, and in those ones as membership organizations having over 1 million farmers that are part, of this.
Working collectively as farmers with support from UCDA and development partners, NUCAFI has established a fully automated state-of-the-art coffee processing plant at Namamve.
A coffee factory that grades, that sorts, that roasts coffee, that grinds coffee, that packages coffee. What does this mean? That we have empowered the farmers, we have cultivated the farmer from only being a coffee farmer to becoming a processor, to becoming actually an industrialist.
To complete the chain, they have set up a coffee shop in Kampala city centre,
where you can go and taste Uganda's coffee. Uganda's coffee, which has not exchanged hands from farmers to you as a consumer.
Betty Namwagala is the executive director of Uganda Coffee Federation, another umbrella organization that brings together everyone, all players along the coffee value chain.
The reason we have this is because initially it was Coffee Exporters Association, and exporters being high in the coffee value chain, they have to work with different coffee stakeholders. So they cannot lobby and advocate for issues without taking into account other players. So that's why we work together as a federation.
There's a lot of capabilities already existing in Uganda, and I think we've helped build some of those, and we're proud of those accomplishments. And I think we need to be realistic, and I think Ugandans don't really need a lot of external support for their coffee sector. It's a mature sector. There are a lot of smart people working in it, and a lot of dedicated farmers who are trying to make it work for them. And I think that you couldn't ask for more.
Uganda's coffee industry is in much better shape than ever, with the key players in the chain executing their responsibilities in a determined and professional way. Total production this year clocked 4.5 million 60-kilogram bags. 3.5 million of this is currently being exported. Recent export statistics records an increase in coffee exports in 2015-2016, domestic consumption, however, estimating at 6% of the total national production, implying that most Ugandan coffee is for export. Under the guidance and supervision of UCDA, Uganda, the largest exporter of Uganda coffee, exports 40,000 metric tons of cleaned green coffee annually.
The role of Uganda Coffee Development Authority, which normally we call UCDA, is very, very important. They check the quality of the coffee which we are exporting. They make sure that the quality which we are exporting meets the international standards.
This supervision and guidance has been instrumental in the penetration of new markets.
Ugandan coffee. We have opened some new markets for Ugandan coffee, like India, China, Japan, South Korea, and many others, including South Africa. So we see a bright future.
Uganda's coffee industry has remained on top even amidst the devastating coffee wilt disease and effects of climate change. Although the higher percentage of Uganda coffee is produced by smallholder farmers, the contribution by large multinational companies cannot be ignored. This is Kaweri Coffee, reputed to be the largest single Robusta coffee plantation in Africa, covering 2,500 hectares in Mubende. Established in 2001, the company harvests approximately 1,500 tons of green coffee annually. This and many other multinational companies continue to work with UCDA in developing and promoting Uganda's coffee, but most importantly, contributing to the annual $500 million foreign exchange earning for the country.
We need to encourage more Ugandans to consolidate smaller holdings and perhaps have slightly larger estates on which they produce coffee. It doesn't look as though the farmer is going to be distressed in the future. It's not going to be a situation like we had in 2001 when coffee prices absolutely collapsed and the whole industry was knocked for six. Quite the reverse, actually. Uganda looks like pretty much a beacon of hope. From having been in a bit of a mess a few years ago, it now looks like a leading light, certainly in Africa in terms of exports.
I went to the U.S. about 3 years ago after I'd been here a while, and I found that Starbucks was selling Uganda coffee, labeled Uganda coffee.
Under the regulatory oversight of UCDA, Ugandans have embarked on a domestic coffee consumption given the level of enthusiasm exhibited by investors venturing in coffee shops. Through the increased number of coffee shops, coffee drinking is increasingly becoming trendy among youths and middle-income earners. As such, coffee consumption in Uganda has grown tremendously over the years. The development of coffee drinking culture by promoting micro-roasting cafe lifestyle and espresso-based beverages like cappuccino, latte, being crafted by young and highly professional baristas.
And as UCDA, we have taken the coffee consumption to the youth. We have helped to form some coffee clubs at universities, but also in some secondary schools. We hope that drive to interest the youth in drinking coffee when they are still at school, when they get in employment, that culture of drinking will continue.
UCDA is also spearheading the development of coffee specialists, most importantly coffee baristas, aiming at increasing the quality of the cup, ensuring a competitive, refined end product. Claire Rakatogoro is the promotion and training officer at UCDA. She joined the industry as a barista in 2008. UCDA identified her and sponsored her for training in Denmark and Sweden. Claire is charged with the responsibility of training baristas and also organizing the Barista National Championship. To date, 660 baristas have been trained here.
UCDA being a regulatory body, one of our mandates is to promote local coffee consumption. And so when barista was introduced into Uganda, barista competitions was introduced into Uganda, we took it up as UCDA to use it as a tool to promote local coffee consumption And we used it as a tool for building capacity and also having skilled baristas.
The private players have also taken up the initiative to complement UCDA's efforts. Established in 2008, Africa Coffee Academy is a one-stop center that offers a total coffee experience.
You want to trade coffee? You are welcome. You want to start a coffee farm? Please come here. You want any coffee machinery? We have it. So we offer a total coffee experience to support entities, players in the coffee industry who want to participate in any part of the value chain.
Another key mandate of UCDA is supporting research. In the 90s, when the coffee wilt disease struck, UCDA worked closely with research institutes to develop a disease-resistant coffee drawn from a variety of Robusta species in Uganda that successfully averted the crisis.
So they collected that coffee and got out the best characteristics for each of the coffee. High yielding, fast yielding, disease resistant, and cloned them. So the clonal coffee was a product of the best qualities of the Nganda.
The National Coffee Research Institute at Kituza Mukono, a specialized facility set up to research in coffee and cocoa. It was established in 2013 following the operationalization of the National Coffee Policy. The decision to have research in coffee as an independent entity resulted in the observation that coffee research was not given particular attention. At this research facility, emphasis has been put on first tracking the multiplication of the 7 wilt disease-resistant 7 lines.
In liaison and close collaboration and support with the Uganda Coffee Development Authority, this institute has put up a modern biotechnology laboratory with a major focus to increase and do so very quickly on the availability of planting material of these 7 coffee wilt disease-resistant lines. You will be shown the process which is undertaken to get these clean, disease-free materials using a process called tissue culture.
Government appreciates the potential for coffee to transform the rural incomes in line with the National Development Plan 2, which aims to move the country to a lower middle income status by the year 2020. In 2015, government revived its earlier targets of planting 300 million coffee trees and reaching export of at least 4.5 million bags by 2018 to producing 20 million 60 kilogram bags of coffee and planting 900 million coffee trees by 2020. Subsequently, President Museveni issued a directive to increase production targeting this vision. UCDA, in collaboration with Operation Wealth Creation, local governments, Prime Minister's Delivery Unit, PMDU, and the private sector are spearheading the drive.
1.7 million households in Uganda producing coffee, owning half an acre to an acre. Now that's a challenge, but also that's where lies the opportunity. We are producing half a ton of green coffee per hectare. Vietnam is producing 2.5 tons per hectare. Brazil, 2 tons per hectare. Now, without even increasing acreage, if we increase productivity to 1 ton per hectare, we are in 9 million bags, almost 10 million bags. If we worked hard and worked at the level of Brazil, voila, 4 million bags times 4 times 16 million bags. Or if we worked harder, like Vietnam, 2.5, we would have more than 20 million bags. But that means we need 3 things. We need to increase productivity, we need water production to be there. We need fertilizers, and we need inputs. That's where the challenge is, but that's where also the opportunity is.
UCDA has been able to successfully exercise its regulatory mandate in the coffee industry over the last 25 years because of a dedicated staff that executes its role with high levels of professionalism. 108 in total, the team that includes management and technocrats, broken down in 5 directorates, is well motivated. the driving force behind the UCDA satisfactory service delivery. Jen Nakandi is a quality assurance officer at the Lugogo Quality Control Facility. She is among the longest-serving staff at the UCDA with 35 years' experience in the industry. Like many of her fellow staff members, Jen gratefully owes her personal achievement to UCDA.
For example, I have a small house where I sleep because of UCDA. Some people are given loans, for example, car loans, which they could not afford to buy it on cash. And it is giving other people knowledge to do business. As you said, personally, it has helped me to educate my own children because the salary was fair.
The exemplary performance of UCDA's management is attributed to the industry-based board of directors, a practical demonstration of the public-private partnership with the representation from key stakeholders from the government and the private sector.
For the last 25 years, the authority has never had an audit exception, which means that the board in their selection and management of staff has been not only careful, perhaps even lucky, but has made sure that we pick performers and professionals. Because you hear about these parastatals having bodies with problems with the, what do you call it, the Katuntu thing. They have problems with the Public Accounts Committee asking this, that, and they have problems with the John Mwanga queries. But for us, for the last 25 years, we haven't had a query. Our accounts have been spot on, and we intend to stay like that.
With the government's commitment to put in place an enabling environment that provides access to knowledge, input and credit, Uganda's coffee farmers can easily improve upon their coffee yields and thus their income livelihoods today.
Yeah, I want to assure the farmers and processors that this industry has already shown signs of growth. It is growing, the graph is going up. I want to assure them that this is the most dependable business, agriculture-related business, that we are very sure of. The market is assured, the knowledge is there. We stand to benefit if we all put our heads together and the efforts to make sure that we target increased production, that is from where we are to 20 million bags. Certainly this one is going to change the whole situation in terms of changing the welfare of the farmers and all those who are involved in the value chain of the coffee crop.
Indeed, the growth, improvement and expansion of Uganda's coffee industry is vivid demonstration of UCDA's 25 years of proficiency in regulating the industry with commitment, dedication, professionalism and transparency. As a result, increased millions of Ugandans continue to directly or indirectly depend on coffee to sustain their livelihoods. This undoubtedly is no mean achievement that calls for celebration.